Hi guys, in this video I am going to show you how to paint these cute little autumn birch trees loosely, simply, using a ton of colors. Let's start. The first color we're going to start mixing is going to be the Van Dyke Brown hue, and I'm just using my number 8 Princeton Neptune to mix some of that on here. I want a very muted version of this color because we're going to lay down the base in a light color, which is the Van Dyke Brown, and then build up on that with a more stronger opacity of the same color. So the first thing we're going to do is paint in very loosely the tree trunk. So I'm lightly grazing, give it the shape that you like. I'm just going to go for just straight. In hindsight, I think most of the birch trees are pretty straight to begin with. So let's just keep that simple, especially if you are new and you're just kind of trying to figure out your way around. So get the technique first and then let's get fancy, okay? So I'm doing one here. I'm going to do one more, mixing that same amount of color. And let's just do that here. And I'll make this one thinner. Okay, so now that we have our tree trunks, we're now going to go in before this area dries up because that is important. And we are mixing the same color with just more color, less water for a darker intensity. For that, I'll be switching to my number 4 Princeton Velvetouch, and I'm getting the color directly from here. And what we're going to first start off doing is we'll let this dry for just a little bit more. I'm going to start off by doing a little bit of a branch coming up. Then we're going to do another branch over here and kind of just drop in more of that color at the top. How many ever branches you want, really. Leave that up to you. Getting more of that color. Now we're going to add more of that color at the base so we get this nice blend. Same thing here. Notice how when you get the color directly from your color cake without mixing on your palette, you're getting a more rich feel and look. Then we're going to do the little lines. Now, noticing how much of a blend this is giving you right away, perhaps it's in our best interest to do the lines once it's dried up completely. But before we do that, I'm just going to lightly try just so that you guys can see what that looks like. So see how it kind of immediately blends. We don't want that. We want there to be a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? We want it to be a little bit more obvious that those are lines happening there. So we'll just wait for it to dry a bit more before we go back to doing that. So in the meantime, we can paint in some of the foliage happening at the top. I don't have too much room happening there, but we can still get away with some stuff. So I'm going to start off with using the Princeton number 8, and we're getting some yellow ochre. And I want the yellow ochre to be very, very muted. So I'm mixing it on my palette and mixing tons of water with it. And then we are going to use big press down strokes, brush full of water to get nice big organic shapes happening in here. So I'm going to start off at the top like that and press down to kind of create fuller looking cloudy strokes. The edges I want more like tiny little organic dots, but the center can be a little bit more intense in terms of having a fuller looking cloud I guess, for lack of a better word. So mixing more of that on here. I'm going to now move on to this side, and I'm really pressing down to like get those nice areas covered. They can kind of intersect because the trees are so close together, and that is okay. I'm going to have a little bit more happening to the side just because our trees are super tall and we don't have too much area for our leaves, and I don't want to go off. So we're going with the flow here, guys. This is what I mean by going with the flow. Notice the amount of white space I have left in between. I'm only getting water and adding more strokes at this point because I want there to be like a gradual fade off. At this point, without really washing off our brush, let's get some of the burnt sienna. So I'm getting a little bit of water to make sure I have enough. And then I'm going to drop some of this in here. I want little details happening around the tree. And this is the best time to do this because just like with the bark of the tree, the reason we're getting it directly, not mixing it on, continue adding a little bit more of this color in. I'm concentrating in the areas at the bottom here where the tree trunk kind of ends so that it covers up the area because the yellow is a little bit too light. So now we're going to move on to our third color. And for the third color, I'm going to be using the orange, which is cadmium orange hue specifically. Again, getting it directly from here. We want to use this sparingly. So just use it in where the other two colors are there. So try and use it sparingly in just the yellow bits. So dominantly here, sparingly outside. Because you want that nice hint of orange, which really gives you that nice autumn feel. And then also at this point, because now is when things are sort of blending in. So we've got a nice bright color, we've got a light color, and then we've got a base coat. Just to kind of offset all of that, I am getting some Van Dyke brown. And I'll just have a little bit of this in these areas. This is a magnificent exercise if you are completely new to watercolor and not quite sure how the blending works and the mixing works. This is a fabulous exercise to kind of help you get loose while also giving you an idea of how the medium works in terms of getting, like things like covering up the dark branches, layering, adding color over color. Fascinating results. Okay, and if I've not mentioned it before, I'm going to mention it again. Watercolor dries up very, very light based on how it looks when it is damp. So keep that in mind. And that's why I'm adding additional colors in there. Okay, so now that we're done that, we're going to go back and do the last bit, which is going to tie this in and make it look like a birch tree. And that is pretty much taking our number 4 for a nice fine pointed tip and using the Van Dyke brown hue to paint in our lines. So feel free, I prefer drawing lines in like this. So I'm going to turn my page sideways and I'm just using the full span of this brush instead of just using the tip. This way I get more coverage. So I'm using this. So clearly I need more color on my brush. So I'm going to get more. What you can also do is alternate between using the full, well, not the full, but like the quarter top of your brush pushing outward, and then also doing a couple of lines in there, because that can also give you the results you're looking for. So making it uneven. Can even paint in the sides this way if you want to even out the sides. Just giving you guys a couple of tips that you can do as you are painting these. Can even dab in more of this color off to the side. This area is still a little bit damp, and so I'm getting a nice sort of soft bloom happening within the trees, which is nice. Great texture. We've got lines happening, so we've got patterns as well. So for this one, I'm going to extend from the top and loosely kind of just paint in the top area because I know it's damp, so it's going to bleed into or blend into the trees, the leaves that we have. And then I'm going to lightly start from the bottom and do the same thing that we did here. So here I'm going to actually, for this one, paint in the side of this tree just so we can experiment and you can see both techniques and figure out which one you like best and stick with that. So I'm getting more color and I'm just going to drop more of that onto the side so it blooms and bleeds into it, giving us a darker version just for the side of the tree, creating a little bit of a shadow depth effect. And then we are done. So we've got our trees. You can feel free to go in and intensify some of the detailing within the trees by just adding a couple of dots. So for instance, I'm just going to take some of this light-ish brown. And if you just want to do something like that and just kind of add it over in certain areas here and there, just to kind of give it that nice soft look. And then another suggestion would be getting some of the darker brown that we've used for our detailing here and just adding it in between to show branches. Again, it's just an option. It kind of makes it look really nice and holistic. But if you want to keep it super loose and eliminate all these details, you can totally do that too. Just a suggestion. And then instead of having the trees just kind of standing that way, how about giving it a little bit of a soft finish? And so for that, I'm going to take some of my Hooker's green and mix that in here with my leftover browns. And I'm getting like more of this like olive green kind of mix. And I'm just going to add this in like this. And I'm kind of mixing it in with the base of the tree. So getting some of that color. So it's more color, less water. And I'm lightly adding these little lines like so, tapering off to the side. Now you can choose to leave it like this or roughly wash off your brush or use the number 8. And with just water on it, you can just kind of lightly mix this in. Adding a couple of strokes, make sure you leave some of that white space in there. That's always, always nice. But now you've got like a soft blend happening. So again, preference. What is your preference? I've showed you how it looked before without blending it. Now this is what it looks like after blending it. So really and truly, it's a matter of preference and what you're trying to achieve. Now, one more thing I would add, and I promise this is the last thing, dropping in some more of that brown from the top of the trees. And this is what's going to really smoothen things out because now we've got the brown seeping into the green, which gives us a most seamless gradient-like effect. And that is it. We are done.